First of all, I'm honored to be invited here to contribute to your conversation, but I also have to apologize profusely because I don't know about you, but I'm a very busy person, and sometimes the things that I'm doing start to overlap. And so this afternoon, even though I'm supposed to be delivering a small talk to you, there's another more insistent project that needs to get addressed before I can talk to you. So there are these grants that must be decided. Small number of grants, 6 of them, and so I'm decided that I'm going to ask your help with these grants, and then we'll move on to the talk, if that's okay with you. What we have here is, here we are. What we have here is a foundation. Okay, we have 6 proposals in front of us that represent an extreme region of the world that Edward Little referred to as the art as relationship. I would call this art as transformation. So our job is to decide whether to give money to these. They're going to go rather quickly, so you'll have to be quick on your feet. And the way we'll decide is sort of like the Roman Forum. So it's oui or no. Can you practice? Can you say oui? No? Okay, I want it firm. That's good. Okay, so let's begin with our proposals. Our first proposal is a request from a small rural farm town of 5,000. It's in economic decline. Lately, some of the town's citizens have been very unhappy and taken out their resentments on each other. They're calling each other names. They are finger-pointing. They are scapegoating. There's even violence. Everybody says it's awful, but no one can agree on a solution. So a town committee wants to hire a muralist to work with the town for 6 months to help the committee feel better about itself and reconcile its warring factions. All those in favor say oui. Are those opposed? No? Aha, very easy to tell, yes. Our next proposal comes from educators and social scientists from a big city school district that has gone from 15% to 65% students of color in the last 10 years. Unfortunately, racism and fear and stereotyping have dramatically increased too. So, this group wants, basically, they have written a study on this, but nobody wants to read the study. So what they're asking for is money to hire an artist to help them figure out a way to get people to pay attention to their research. All those in favor, say oui. All those opposed? No. Okay, very easy to tell. Our next proposal is from a collaboration of 30 young teenage artists and their adult mentors who are very worried about the impact of psychological abuse on children in the home. They've studied up on the subject and think that new legislation is needed to add psychological abuse to the child protection laws. What they want to do, though, is propose a new law to the legislature as a theater piece on the floor of the legislature. And after that, they want to start a company and make money from TV shows and CDs about youth issues. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, this is something that's uniquely American. It seems that some of you may know about this, that over the years, the CIA has put a lot of effort into teaching some military folks from Central and South America some interesting ways to get people to tell their stories. It's called torture. Some people in the United States Congress want this changed. So this is a local college and a theater company, and they want support for a collaboration with the State Department to create a theater institute that would help the Truth Squad guys eliminate their bad habits. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. This comes from the warden of a maximum security prison with 10,000 inmates. The warden is proposing a concert and a lecture series at the prison for inmates and staff that would include the Kronos String Quartet, B.B. King, Carlos Fuentes, Gil Scott-Heron, Jonathan Borofsky, and an inmate production of Waiting for Godot, developed in partnership with the Royal Swedish Theatre. She thinks this will eventually lead to the incorporation of college-level arts programs in all of our prisons, and she thinks this will produce safer prisons and less costly incarceration and reduced recidivism. All those in favor? Oh. Okay. This last proposal comes from a desperate inner-city community where a small group of citizens have been trying to get rid of a crack house. Okay? Prior to the submission of this proposal, these community members engaged the police and the zoning officials and the mayor, and nothing worked. So what they'd like to do is hire an artist to make a mural, of course, to get rid of the dope peddlers. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. So I have a confession to make, of course, is that all of these are real, every one of them. And I'm going to say that you voted for all of them just for the sake of conversation, so we'll be calling them up and telling them that they get all the money. Let me tell you what they are. A wonderful artist named Judy Baca worked in Guadalupe, a small town in the central California, where the farm community, the farm workers, and the farmers were at war with each other. And she literally built a mural on the histories and stories of the community that brought the community together in a way that was unique. Now they have a historical society, which is where they arbitrate all their disputes. It's interesting. The next is an organization called Compass, and they did receive the research, and they hired a fiction writer to write a story that incorporated the research so people could digest it in a way that they could understand it. This last one is an organization, this next one is from City Kids in New York City. 30 young people and their adult mentors did in fact perform in the New York State Legislature, and 2 pieces of legislation on child abuse in the home were passed as a result of their effort. This is a friend of mine named John Bergman, who worked with the State Department and John Jay College to train colonels and captains from South America not to torture anymore. And in fact, it worked. And once it started really working, the CIA closed it down. This is a program I ran for 10 years, the Arts and Corrections Program in the state of California. At its height, this program had a faculty of 1,000 artists and a student body of 25,000 prisoners. And this final program is a single artist in a community that lived across from a crack house. And as I said, nothing worked to get rid of the crack house. So he brought a group of muralists together. They put scaffolds around the building, and they turned the building into a billboard. And the billboard said, "Best crack in Atlanta here. Deep discounts." For some reason, the customers stopped coming. I'm not sure why. Okay. Although many of these proposals may seem extreme, they all actually come from a very similar place. They come from collaborating artists and non-arts organizations and communities in the U.S. searching for a way to bring a kind of balance to an out-of-kilter world. A balance between the safe and the challenging, a balance between the material and the transcendent, between tradition and modernity, opportunity and responsibility, and certainly chaos and order. A balanced community that actually trusts itself to embrace the full range of the stories that rise up from the community. The good and the bad, the settling and the unsettling. A balanced community that engages its artists, its creators, to help weave a strong fabric out of those many stories that define its history, its struggles, its dreams, its values, and its belief. The idea of community story is very central to much of the cultural mediation work that's taking place in the U.S. today. Sometimes it manifests as a direct narrative. Sometimes it is provocation. Sometimes it is an abstract seed planted for conceptual conversation. Sometimes it shows up as a ritual or a celebration. Sometimes it is actually just a piece of art that people feel close to or warm about. But at its heart, it is always collective and it is always evolving. It is an organic thing. The history of this work is quite interesting and it's very deep. Although it has never been mainstream, this mediation practice is at the crossroads of America's cultural DNA. It's always been very controversial as well. Some of America's earliest settlers, of course, regarded music and dance and journeys of the imagination as sinful. Others used it to foment a revolution that you may have heard about. During the Depression, the United States government put thousands of artists to work, like Orson Welles and Jackson Pollock and Katherine Dunham and Dorothea Lange, commemorating, documenting, building, and yes, sometimes criticizing the American story. A similar thing happened in the late 1970s in a jobs program that I was involved in called CETA, the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, that ironically provided the largest federal allocation for the arts in American history. This is the Department of Labor, not the NEA. That program planted the seeds of what has become a 40-year period of sustained growth in the community arts field in the United States, a period that has seen thousands of artists entering the field and over 85% of the country's 3,000 municipal and county arts agencies creating new community arts programs that are basically grounded and designed by and for the people in communities. During this time, we have also seen the creation of over 50 academic degree programs and an equal number of community-based training programs for artists and arts administrators. More recently, there has been a significant growth in the depth and quality of the published research on community arts impact and practice. It should be noted, though, that this spurt of growth has occurred at the community and state level for the most part, with minimal influence and support from the federal government. Finally, a major contributor to the growth and maturation that has been in this field has been this website called the Community Arts Network, if we can get it to come up. There it is. And I recommend it to you. It is a fantastic resource for learning about the art that is taking place at the community level, first voiced by artists, by and large. Now, my history in this work as an artist and arts administrator started in two programs that I mentioned before, the CETA program and the California Department of Corrections. For the past 20 or so years, at the Center for the Study of Art and Community, we've been working to address this question. How can the arts contribute to the development of caring and capable communities? So obviously, a broad question like this gives rise to other questions. What promotes and nurtures our individual and collective creativity? Are there different aspects of the creative called up in different circumstances? Are there principles that can be applied that can strengthen the creative impulse as communities confront their most difficult problems? How do cultural workers and their community partners share power, define success, and build trust? At the Center, we work to build bridges and make translations between community arts resources and the needs of the broader community. We call it arts-based community development. Now, there are others that call it community cultural development or just plain community arts. But as this field has proliferated and grown, it has also become more confusing about what it is and what it does. What are its intentions? So the need for a kind of clarity of purpose and intent has become critical to the field and to our work at the Center. So before I go any further, what I'd like to do is share a few basic definitions, some of which may seem very basic to you, but I'll tell you why. First, community. Groups of people with common interests defined by place, tradition, intention, or spirit. Okay? That's pretty clear, but it's also very broad. Now here's one that comes right from the dictionary. What are the arts? Arts, activities or outcome related to the visual, performing, literary, or media arts, and we would include, of course, multidisciplinary and on and on. That is obviously a very cold, and so we have a companion definition. This is from my friend Isabel Allende. Art is to humankind what dreams are to individuals. Art is a revelation of the collective human soul. So somewhere in between those two definitions, I'm sure you could find yourself. I should point out that laying out these kinds of basic definitions is very important because so many of the people that we work with do not come from the arts world. So they do not speak arts. So continuing on, we actually try to define the field, okay, arts-based community development, which we define as art-centered activities that contribute to the sustained advancement of human dignity, health, or productivity within a community setting. And then we go further, because we like to draw pictures, of course, or maps, as you say. So we say that arts-based community development is arts activities, arts-based activities that nurture and heal people and or communities, arts-based activities that educate and inform us about ourselves and the world, arts-based activities that build and improve community capacity or infrastructure, and finally, arts-based activities that inspire and mobilize individuals or groups. So you can see we've got pretty much everything in the world in our little cosmology here. Our aim was not to lay claim to the truth or to say this is it, but rather to provoke the kinds of conversations you'll be having here today. Here's another picture that actually maps out some of the different kinds of programs that live in the different neighborhoods here. So you can see, and there are many more, and you can see that they overlap tremendously. Finally, here is the 6 programs I shared with you and where they fit on the map, theoretically. Okay. Now, 2 footnotes to this work. First of all, we do not see the work of studio artists and arts organizations who are making and presenting work in traditional theaters or galleries and the like as outside this ecology. We take the position that many of the outcomes included in this ecology are intrinsic to art making and consumption. We do, though, differentiate between these kinds of art-centered activities and arts-based community development work that is designed with a specific intention in mind of addressing one or more community development issues. We also posit that arts-based community development cannot thrive outside of a robust cultural community in general. Our second footnote to this is that historically, we see arts-based community development as a modern iteration of perhaps the oldest field with a lineage that stretches back to this guy here, okay? The prehistoric shaman. There is an element of the shaman's practice that is very much akin to artists working in service to community revitalization. One of the shaman's jobs is to mediate the relationship between the community and the spirit world. A good part of this work involves invocation of benevolent spirits as protection against the destructive forces loose in the world. Now, unfortunately, we've seen more than enough of those dark forces in recent years, and I'm sad to say that often American fingerprints are all over them. Given this, it seemed inevitable that my study of art and community in the U.S. would eventually extend beyond our borders. And as Eva mentioned before, it has resulted in this new book called Art in Upheaval, Artists on the World's Front Lines. And I mention this even though these stories deal with the likes of Slobodan Milosevic and the Khmer Rouge and apartheid. They also say something universal about the creative process as a uniquely powerful mediating force. They say that if you scratch the surface of a human disaster, you will find artists and, yes, art administrators doing amazing work in the most difficult circumstances for a whole host of reasons. To live, to eat, to kindle the human spirit, to bring peace or resolve conflict, to manifest beauty in the face of horror, or to reveal the ugly truth in the face of denial. To rally, to bring order, to educate and inspire, to entertain, to heal, and most of all, to tell the story, directly, obtusely, in code, as a joke, as a song in a pub, a poem or a painting on the wall, as a play unfolding in a cramped living room, or a dance in the streets. Most importantly, I've come to know that in the face of destruction, we are impelled to create. Upheaval begets both crisis and opportunity. Shiva dances to create as well as destroy. It's a survival impulse that I'm not sure we have any control over. In the face of the unfathomable, the senseless, we roll up our sleeves and we get down to the business of making meaning. Some people think you can't beat the devil with a song, but they don't know. Making meaning, community organizing with hopefulness and imagination, concepts like these have been strangers to the dominant American worldview for nearly a decade. But thankfully, in 6 weeks, as the economic and political turmoil roils around us, this state of affairs is about to end. So here's a quote from our new president. "The arts teach people to see through each other's eyes, to respect and understand people who are not like us. This makes us better citizens and makes our democracy work better. Imaginations sparked by the arts are more engaged." I have to tell you something, that for American cultural workers, these words come as a bit of a shock. It's hard for us, very hard for us, to imagine a leader who is comfortable linking imagination and creativity to the advancement of human understanding and democracy. It's almost impossible. It's even harder to believe that beyond the rhetoric, there are already plans to establish an arts corps for community development, for mediation work, and to reestablish the arts as a basic in education. Beyond this, though, the community engagement mindset will be insinuated throughout the federal bureaucracy by new leadership that will be making, interpreting, implementing the guidelines that determine how the government invests its resources. So there's a great likelihood that in addition to the National Endowment for the Arts being interested in community engagement, you're also going to see similar interest from places like the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, and the Department of the Interior. There's also, obviously, this is a time when unemployment is very high, but as the unemployment rate rises, there will probably be a jobs program, very much like CETA, that will provide another opportunity for nonprofit organizations throughout the United States to use artists to make change in their community. While all this is exciting, it's also a challenge. As a nation, we have a responsibility to help heal the wounds we have opened at home and around the world. I'm happy to say that there are thousands of artists who are primed and ready with the skills and imagination needed to respond. So as I said, some people think you can't beat the devil with a song, but they don't know. Some people think you can't beat the devil with Some people think you can't beat the devil with Some people think you can't beat the devil with a song, but they don't know. Thank you.